dreams allow you to astral project. After my Uncle Junie passed, I remember having a strange dream. I remember being transported to a jungle, walking into a clearing and seeing my uncle, but I didn't quite recognize him. His face had grown aged and wizened, and he merged into a sycamore tree. Now, if you knew my uncle, he was a smooth talker and a bad man with a guitar in his hand. He used to play that funk, leaving people with stink faces. He used to scrunch up his shoulders. He would wink at us kids in the pews, having us laugh when we wasn't supposed to. As the years moved on and the memories lost their luster, seeing my uncle, he might crack a joke or two, might ask for $1, might even conjure up tears, but we always knew he had a big heart. Imagine my surprise now, seeing him in this state, crucified with figs budding from his fingertips. We locked eyes, his pupils a fiery white. I heard the creaking of old rocking chairs as he turned the corners of his mouth and spoke. Nephew, these are your relatives. These are your distant cousins. I want you to meet them. I want you to know them. I want you to learn from them. Right then, two heads came levitating in the mist, looking like tendrils or sentinels from the Matrix. Their hair swayed in blues and echoes of greens, their face with markings all familiar. I froze. I felt the blood rush from my toes, not sure whether to run or to fall on my knees in praise. I turned swiftly, beating knees to chest, all too late. I felt the weight of teeth chomping on the back of my tendrils. Right then, electricity shoots through my bones, down my scalp, down my shoulders, the hair on my arm raised bald, fist to sky. My jaw clenches with the sound of Tulsa. The Avatar state ain't got shit on this. I'm surged with power levels way beyond a blonde Super Saiyan. And I wake up back in this mortal form, back in this realm. Now at times when I'm drained from having to explain, I'm at peace. I transcend my flesh. I connect with the ancestors and ascend. Thank you.
Hello, welcome to Speak Your Mind. Welcome back, viewers. We are here with an urban nerd, poet laureate of New London, breaking it down with some spoken word, slam style art. I love it. So I set a timer so I don't go over, so that way you guys get to hear some more of his poetry. So I hope you don't mind if you hear a little ding, ding, ding. But this is our writing challenge section of the show. If you've been tuning in, you know what this is about. But first, I always ask our guests, what inspires you the most in your work?
Well, yeah, I can speak to best the poem, right? So right now, I find myself being inspired by dreams. So literally, that was a dream I had. I feel like there's times that a lot of people can be like, oh, that's a weird dream. And I'm like, yeah, it's a source of inspiration. It could be a source of your stress, things that you didn't even realize were on your mind. And even then being able to talk to my friends about it, friends that I can connect to, friends that I see what they're doing and what I could possibly do. So, just from sharing those dreams with my friends, they're like, man, you should write that down. You should see what you could do with that. So now actually I'm leading into using those dreams to not only share in poetry, but now actually put them together in a book that I could possibly share with some more friends. So
nice. And you did inspire me. So this writing challenge was inspired from a conversation I had with Urban Nerd. He was doing a workshop about James Baldwin, and you could share a little bit more about that. So the writing challenge prompt that I chose is Darkest Hour, because I was scrolling through some James Baldwin stuff, and that stood out to me. very strongly when I read the poem, and it fits the criteria. It's a 5 to 10 line poem. And as you know, at home we do a little brainstorm. So we're only going to do about 30 seconds of a brainstorm. So if you've done it before, go ahead and join in. Mike is going to put on the music. And this is just to get you warmed up because I want you to have your journal and do some writing. You can join us as well if you want. You don't have to. So go ahead and cue the music, Mike, and I'll talk you through it. Brainstorm is just everything that comes to mind when you think of your darkest hour. And you already know how to set it up. You're just writing. We're just warming up the brain, clearing out the well, priming the pump. And so words, thoughts, emotions, memories. It can even be, I don't know what to say, but it's okay. We're moving from our left brain into our right brain. And I want to take you at home on a journey with me. So many of you at home want to write, but just don't know how to get started, or you've started, but you don't have that support or motivation to keep doing it. Well, I hope you found a home in the show, Speak Your Mind, and do this 30-second brainstorm so you have a little toolbox. So when you do pause the video and you're going to go ahead and write, you'll have some thoughts and emotions to work with. All right, so come to a nice little close. I'm going to have Mike turn off the music, and hopefully you have some good stuff to work with because you are going to write a 5 to 10 line poem about your darkest hour, and you can email it to me at speakyourmind@myyahoo.com or join our Facebook group, Speak Your Mind. But now I want to talk to Urban Nerd. I wrote a poem on the darkest hour, and you wrote one at home, correct?
Yes, yes.
So why don't we share first, and then you can share with me a little bit of your inspiration.
Of course.
But one thing I did want to do, because I want to read the original James Baldwin.
Okay.
So you get an idea. So this is the James Baldwin version. The darkest hour is just before the dawn, and that I see, which does not guarantee power to draw the next breath, nor abolish the suspicion that the brightest hour we will ever see occurs just before we cease to be. It's kind of beautiful and morbid at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It usually can be just like that.
Yeah. So this is what I wrote, and I love this because I teach adaptation poems. So if you're a beginner writer, the best way to break into writing is do an adaptation poem. Find a poem that you love, and then write your version of it. Okay, here it is. Concrete basement floor, clouding my eyes, broken glasses, shock at living, brute hand lashed out in anger, little boy fear trapped in Hulk suit daddy. No remorse, just lies like my body on the floor. A forgiveness I will see only in heaven.
Okay, poet.
Okay, poet. All right, I saved the best for last. You go.
So I write on my phone. So all my people out there that write on your phones, it's okay. So I keep my notes, but I like doing these in the moment. So you caught me with this, and this is what I got. So lowest of the lows, this is the darkest timeline. How could this have happened? What quarter flip did I lose? What fork in the road did I turn wrong onto? Despite the darkness, the light will always shine through. Appreciate you.
Love it. So, God, I have so many questions for you. But I'm going to start with what inspired you to learn about James Baldwin and what just brought you to that work.
Yeah. So actually, it's a lot of people I've talked with. We've heard of James Baldwin. We got to hear some things, watch some things. But I really got fascinated with digging up YouTube debates, listening to him speak. And recently, Culturally Lit Fest, they actually asked me to do a James Baldwin-inspired poem. And so, yeah, of course, no pressure. So, I had rattled off in my mind a couple of different ways that I could approach it. And, what I found myself was really just talking about being a creative. Like, at the end of the day, this was someone who had just so many widespread experiences that just came at such an intersection that he could reach so many people, right? And at the end of the day, it just was about him writing, getting it out there, talking with people, getting to know people. And what inspired me was to, just get people to write and create, because I think there's so many people that have these gifts and they don't give them back. because they just feel like it's not their place, or they feel like they're not really a poet. And me being someone who came from a background in rap and music, even now being poet laureate, there's still times I'm like, well, I'm a rapper first. I'm a musician first, and now I can come into that.
What is poet laureate? So we had Lisa on our crew.
Absolutely.
Was asking what is laureate, and I'm like, well, I have to ask AnUrbanNerd.
So poet laureate, you can think of almost like a master of ceremony of types, where if there is a ribbon cutting, if there is a ceremony, if there's a graduation, they can ask the poet laureate of the city to come speak and share some words. So I've spoken at commission ceremonies, Coast Guards, even to now teaching poetry and working on ways that we can get more youth inspired into doing poetry. So that's a little bit of it. But even in that, I see a lot of just making connections with people, bringing poetry to them, speaking sometimes speaking from a perspective that you may not have experienced, but you get to speak with other people and live through. So that's a big aspect of what I've learned.
And I love that your slam. Well, do you consider yourself slam or spoken word?
Spoken word.
Spoken word.
But I can do slam as well. I feel like I can do it all.
You're making me eat my words, because I had just said to somebody the other day, I'm like, because they're like, oh, you should be poet laureate. And I'm like, and I applied to one, but I had it in my head that no, like the poet laureate system just wants these elite, academic, professorial types. And I'm like, they aren't embracing spoken word poets or slam poets. They haven't quite gotten into that, that urban. But then you.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, wait a minute. I'm going to go back and tell that person I was wrong.
Yeah.
Do you find it's changing? I
find that you're going to meet opposition. You're gonna find the spaces where, you're going to challenge the space. My very first thing that I spoke at was actually the chief police inauguration. And I had to speak from an experience of what my students were experiencing, what a lot of our people in the community were experiencing, underprivileged were experiencing. And for a lot of people, they may not feel like that was the right place, but it was really one of those things where Poet Laureate Frederick Douglass from Hartford said, at the end of the day, do you want to, speak what you have to say with some honey, or is there going to be a little bite on the end of that truth? So what I always say now is...
And we are merging, so we have to represent the makeup of the Poet Laureate system. And what's interesting, since I said that, now on my Facebook, all these Poet Laureate, ethnic, urban, I'm like, oh, I guess I was wrong.
And it's okay to get in some good trouble. Get in some good trouble, speaking the truth, sharing those perspectives, because you're starting the conversations.
Yeah.
And that's a part of it.
Yeah. And I'm curious, I wonder if you think it's any part of it is like the Amanda Gordon effect?
I think it's all of that. And when people say, how's poetry doing? Is poetry coming back? I always say poetry is doing just like how we're doing, right?
Plenty of time. I'm doing well.
Poetry is doing just how we're doing. Yes. So they are like, oh, it's a new revolution of poetry. No, poetry's always been there. When you go to the right spaces, you go to the right places, people are still doing the poetry. They're still performing. They're still writing, right? It's really just that sense of, is it mainstream? I mean, sure. It might be getting a little more mainstream when we have Amanda Gorman's on the field. When we have poetry that recently got into nominations, I believe it won a Grammy, and those times that we can get accolades to it, of course, it's great. It's great for the poetry and the culture, but it's always there. It's always thriving.
And I love that there is this line now is starting to fade.
Yeah.
Because if we look at, we're so lucky in Connecticut, we have Antoinette
Yes.
Rebel as our Connecticut State Poet Laureate.
Yes.
And she's very lyrical.
Yes.
But to have a Black woman representing Connecticut, and I grew up in Connecticut, and I left. I went to New York, I went to LA, because I'm like, you know what? Connecticut doesn't appreciate Black people and Black artists and all that.
Yeah.
But I like that it like I said, it is mainstream, but even as I complain about not enough urban poets being represented, I appreciate just as much a Black lyrical poet being represented. It's all about, like I said, the doors.
Same with you. You definitely in the beat poetry, right? Definitely in that tradition of historic type of poetry. And even in the sense of, us saying oh, well, are people still doing that style? It's still there because everyone has their unique experiences that they bring to it. And that's what I love about it. It's so multifaceted that I can come do slam poetry poetry in, the middle of Mystic, and they're more written, literary poetry, but we all are experiencing this in a different lens, a different perspective. And I always will say that, as much as I still hold that I am a rapper first, I'm just a storyteller, and I use different mediums to tell my story.
Yeah. Yeah, and and I think that it's great that you brought up the Beatnik Poets, because I think they were the original slam poets in a way, and it's great because it was controversial, and so it brings back to what you said before. It's like just saying the stuff that people don't want to say, and it's not necessarily like a ethnic issue. It's that renegade, that sort of rebellious sort of issue, and the fact that they did lay that groundwork in a sense to allow now what we do. I mean, it's still going to be a little bit of a shock to some people because of the color of our skin, but what we're saying is not any more controversial than Allen Ginsberg and
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's where I always say is, are you more upset that you got hit in the mouth with the truth? Or are you more upset that we shared it right now?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Okay, now I have to figure out how to turn this off. Well, I did it! Wonderful. All right, so that brings us to the last question. I could talk to you for hours and hours, but we'll have a podcast.
There you
It'll
go.
be Speak Your Mind
There you
podcast.
go, there you go, there you go.
So you watch the show, and then you watch the podcast. It'll be a whole empire.
There you go.
Collaboration. But what I ask every artist is for the folks at home, because it's about you guys.
Yes.
It's about inspiring you to write, inspiring you to share your writing. So what tips or advice do you have to our folks at home, beginner writers, professional writers, all artists, storytellers, to keep doing it, keep sharing it?
So I always say start. Just start. Whatever you're doing, even if you're scrapbooking, whatever you're doing, start. Because it's all different forms of art, and what they say is that you're never going to get to making good art until you start making the bad art, right? Writing is the easy part. Editing is hard, right? But you get to that point with just more practice. I mean, like I said, I never would have thought that I would be Poet Laureate. When people sent it to me to apply, I was like, I'm not, same in your mindset, I'm not there yet, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm here realizing that, in my own way, I've been doing these things, just progressing. Another great quote is actually from Michael Jackson when he says, I have to do these songs because if I don't do them, God will give them to Prince. So, so if you don't create the art, if you don't do it, someone else will. So run with the idea, run with it, because you have a unique perspective that people can pull to. So
that's what I needed to hear. That was a message for me. Thank you.
Anytime. Anytime.
All right, thanks so much. You're going to do another poem for us?
Yes.
All right, don't go anywhere, because we have an urban nerd who is going to blow our minds some more. So stay tuned.
Back in 2016, I made the mistake of watching Get Out, Hidden Colors, and the I Am Not Your Negro documentary, all in the same week. Between the surreal horror, being baptized in hidden history, and the paradox that is hearing James Baldwin's voice narrating the Black Lives Matter protests, I was in awe. Slack jaw, bombarded with this past, present, and future state of being Black in America. I remember walking out of the theater in a daze. By the time I got to work, I was mean mugging every one of my white coworkers. Oh, my silence was deafening. I was lost for words, so I wrote, like a madman, anything to get these flood of thoughts and emotions out. Get out the frustration, the pain, and is this not what artists do? We write not because we want to, but because we have to. We must channel emotions like alchemists, invoking feelings through the pages. So it pains me hearing people say that I don't have time to write. They don't have the time to create. Slaving at their 9-to-5 has left them in the sunken place. We work jobs just so that we can survive and maybe afford to do what we truly are passionate about on the side. Finally, finding time to realize I'm too exhausted. There's no nap that could help my soul rest. Now, remember, even Baldwin took the time he needed before writing. When he didn't write as much, why he didn't take a step away from his work from the civil rights movement to focus, he replied, because I'm better than that. That he wished he wrote faster, but that he had the sobering reality he had been working for 2 years in between assassinations. That they are killing my friends. That while attempting to write, he recognized that he and the people he loved could die in the morning. Imagine grieving and being asked, why don't you step away and focus on your writing? You are better than that. While surviving a pandemic, we were asked when the next painting will be done, if the next album is dropping. Today we watch bombs drop over Gaza, clear footage capturing a genocide, families mourning their children, and I'm expected to have the poems prepared. Baldwin said there is a freedom under the shadow of death. So I must write. We must create fearlessly, for the opposite of war is not peace. The opposite of war is creation. I charge you all to make time to create and take the time to find peace, to rest, to grieve, so that we don't create in despair, so you can stand true to your faith, so you don't betray the many people that poured into you, that we as creatives can raise public awareness and provide raw discussion. We must speak life into each other because it matters how we see us. When art, our poetry, our music, the ways that we channel our stress is reduced to content. I swear I hear the song, everything is content, everything is content. When creatives are expected to share the most intimate parts of ourselves, performing in order to drive engagement. When Instagram asks me to make another damn reel and even suggest a trending song. We find ourselves measuring the success of our art by views and like counts, by interactions, when we no longer have discussions of what inspired a piece, what inspired a writing, when we host artist talks, but we sit in the audience and never actually talk with the artists, never approach them. What happens when the engagement is no longer engaging? When we only have 140 characters of society shifting conversations, when our discussions have become reductive, we must recognize that social issues must be solved with social movements, and we are a movement. So move like the spirit has shot through your bones. We are a wave crashing onto rocks, eroding stone, wearing down rotten foundations. We are the muses framed in silk on the cusp of a renaissance. When someone asks, who said that you could do this? Respond, I did. Because who else will write the book if not you? Who else will create the documentary, the song, the painting? Who will tell your story? Who will attempt to whitewash it? Who told you you weren't qualified? Who killed your dream? What teacher, what coworker, what family member made you doubt your capability? The world is held together by love and compassion of many others. When America rather pay for the Band-Aids than the remedy, we must shed light on these stories while others are watching shadow puppets. So write until the ink dries from your pen, until you paint scriptures with your fingers, until blood spills from your fingertips and form cave paintings. We must create. To weaponize our pain, to possibly connect with others, and to ultimately let go. We create not for monetary gain, yet we must know our worth. We must create not for money, but to capture our value. This can't be better time to be an artist, as a writer, a creative. This Black History Month, we celebrate Black art. We are here to kick off the year. This will be a year of redemption, a year of a renaissance. Thank you.